You cast your line to go fishing for the right clients, but are you in the right spot on the right water with the right line and lure? On today's show, our experts are ready to fill your tackle box with the right marketing and sales techniques to set you up for success. But first, a Michigan business honored with a Presidential Award for Export Services is here to share key advice for those looking to expand overseas. Expert Connections starts now. During a year that was especially tough for Michigan companies came good news. Two businesses honored for their work increasing U.S. exports. And today, we're sharing their key advice. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. Ready Rock International and Foster Swift Law Firm were among just 39 businesses in the country honored in 2020 by the President and the U.S. Secretary of Commerce for making major contributions to the country's exports and export services. These achievements support the U.S. economy and create American jobs. I'm joined today by attorney Jean Stokel of Foster Swift. Jean, thanks so much for joining us and congratulations on such a big honor.
Thank you. We really are honored by that award. It's special to us. We've been working for years to get Michigan companies rolling on the export train, and it's great to see success here in Michigan.
Absolutely. So, Jean, for companies that are maybe just getting started in exporting, what is the best tip that you can provide to ensure success?
Sure. So for companies, the important thing is dollars in the door, really, and to get from contact, a foreign contact that might be interested in your product or service to contract. The key is really doing due diligence. For all of the companies that are new to export, it's key from a legal perspective too to do due diligence on your foreign trade partner. Do due diligence on the foreign country that you've selected to trade with, and do some due diligence on the local laws that will affect the contract that you have in place.
What is the most common legal mistake that new exporters make?
Well, there are a couple. One of them is to not take into account that in the United States, exporting is a privilege, it's not a right. So companies really have to understand US law behind the ability to export for very many different reasons. One of them primarily being national security, but also our position on human rights around the globe. Because of regional stability, the United States does regulate exports, and some things and some technology and some services require companies to get an approval or a license from the US government before exporting. So exports can be physical things like we all think about, a product leaving the country and crossing the border, but also technology can be controlled. And that's a really dicey thing for companies to deal with because anybody that has a computer at your company can be an exporter. When they press that send button, if they're sending export control technology, you might require a license. So that's one of the big issues. The other top issue, I guess I would say, is not having a formal written contract in place. These handshake deals just don't serve a company's best purpose.
Jean, I know you work with many kind of partner agencies when you're working on export services. Can you provide some resources that might be helpful?
Oh, absolutely. Including on this issue that we just talked about, Julie, of due diligence. So they're great resources, both from the federal government and from the state of Michigan. One great one for due diligence on foreign companies, foreign business partners. So that could include maybe a foreign agent or distributor that a Michigan company wants to use, or a foreign customer is the U.S. Department of Commerce. So you can order international company profiles and get something like a D&B, a background on that company, including financial information and other things. There's a small charge for that from the U.S. Commerce Department, but for small to medium-sized businesses, it's really worth it for peace of mind and assurance down the road, and to understand who it is that you're dealing with. Lots of other great resources too for background about countries. Michigan State University's International Business Center is terrific. They have a great website called Global Edge. The CIA World Factbook is on that website. Our firm, through a partnership with some international firms that we're involved with, have included summaries of foreign laws that would affect U.S. companies when they're engaging foreign agents and distributors abroad. So lots of good information on that website. All of the U.S. government websites are really very good if you're trying to figure out if your company might need an export license before exporting the product abroad. And we'll certainly provide a nice resource sheet to you, Julie, so that if companies need that, there'll be links there for all of those agencies and other appropriate nonprofit organizations that can help too. Because for U.S. companies, one of the other laws that's out there is a law on anti-bribery and corruption. And the World Bank, Transparency International also have corruption indexes for countries. And that's an important thing to take into account when you're doing business internationally.
A lot of support, a lot of resources. Jean, thank you so much for this information. We will definitely link to all of this on our website for you. For those resources, just head to WLAJ.com/expertconnections and click the link for Legal Connections. Whether you're taking aim at new markets or just refocusing your aim, zeroing in on that ideal audience is key to driving new leads and ultimately to closing the sale. And the COVID pressure cooker has really upped the ante. Joining me now are marketing connections experts, Paul Schmidt from UnoDeuce Multimedia, Jesse Flores of SuperWebPros, and Tim Haynes of Symposia Labs. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, Julie. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So this is such an important topic. And I think COVID has really had an impact because a lot of people are having to really refocus on who that ideal client is. Tim, I want to start with you. When it comes to attracting that ideal audience, what is the first thing that we need to consider?
So from my perspective, you want to tell the riskiest version of your truth possible, but you want to do that with your audience in mind. Be transparent about your expectations, your fees, etc., but focus more on communicating your value and also your values. We all have way too many notifications on our phones, so your message really does need to actually matter, but it can't succeed without the right user experience. So your company is going to hopefully attract those that share the same values as you. Ultimately, what we're saying here is smoke what you sell and smell what you smoke.
Okay, I like that. That really rings true. And Tim, as you're talking about attracting the right audience, it's important to keep in mind what you should do when you attract maybe an audience that is not so right for you. You are a big proponent of just being real about it. And at times that might even mean firing the client.
So true. So not every client is a good fit for every agency, and not every boss is a good fit for every employee. So we like to think about sometimes the need to separate from a client, but something that we can all connect to is sometimes you're working at a job that you should quit because the organization isn't living up to what you expect it to live up to.
Absolutely. All about making those right connections. Jesse, when we're talking about making those right connections, today's digital platforms really claim to make it easy to get your message to the right people at the right time. But you've talked a lot, very openly, about wasting money on digital advertising. You still use it. So how do you reconcile these two perspectives? Because I bet a lot of people are listening and thinking, whoa, I've wasted a lot of money too on ads that just did not.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, thousands of dollars on ads that haven't converted. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like, big part of it, one of the biggest missing pieces that I had was neglecting the power of focus. If everyone is, you ask the business owner, who's your ideal client? They say, oh, everyone who blah, 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 blah. And if everyone is your target, then no one is your target. And it's very, very difficult to get a return quickly on that investment. I'll give you a quick example. I won't share any client stories, but I'll give you a fun example. So my daughter has an e-commerce store called Unicorn. She sells unicorn type things. It's all on WordPress. It's all very fun, something we do together. And we're trying to drive traffic to this particular website so she can, pay for her college. So we start thinking, okay, who's going to buy unicorn type apparel? Right. So we start thinking parents. Okay. And we've got different kinds of things for kids, for toddlers, for babies, whatever. And so we start coming up with, okay, who's our ideal audience? And so we start coming up with a list of segments. So let's take one segment, which was baby clothes. So we started thinking, okay, what about moms that have brand new babies? What about moms between ages of this and this, or moms between this and this? Or what about dads? What about grandmothers? And so what we did is we take all these different hypotheses and we break them into separate audiences. I think we ran 6 separate audiences. And we run a very, very, very small test with, I don't know, maybe $200 of risk capital. I don't even know if it was that much. Actually, it might have been $100 of risk capital. And what we found is in that very, very, very small experiment that grandmothers outperformed 6-1 the other 2 audiences, right? We were able to get grandmothers to click to the site for less than 87 cents a click, whereas the dads and the moms or anyone else we were testing, it was costing us north of $2 a click, right? And with this kind of approach, we were able to figure out very quickly, target this, not that, double down on this, not that. And as a result, we're able to say, by focusing here and focusing our dollars there and testing the audience, we're able to start making a higher return much more quickly. And so that disciplined, systematic approach is huge for making sure we're not losing money. And this is true for us and for all of our customers.
And you zeroed in on a target audience you didn't even know was going to be there. Paul, I want to turn to you real quickly. Where does story fit in when we're trying to attract this ideal audience?
Well, story is everything. And I'm going to circle back to a little bit of what Tim brought up, because that authenticity and that transparency is huge. But knowing your story, your mission, and your brand and being unapologetic for it is huge, because that also allows you to attract and draw people in that can actually fit within the core values that you exude to your staff and the other clients that you work with, because that's how the authenticity will work, for the simple fact that, like Jesse was talking about, that kind of targeting. We target nonprofits, but that sometimes draws the attention of for-profits because of the style we have and the story we like to tell with that. So being authentic, knowing your mission and how that goes out into the community, all those factors are important for drawing an ideal client.
This has been so insightful. Paul, Jesse, Tim, thank you. We will actually also put a link to Jesse's daughter's company in case you want to check out Unicorn. We'll put that on our website. To see more from our experts, head to WLAJ.com/expert-connections and click the link for marketing connections. One way to attract your ideal audience is to hand the megaphone to your current customers. Our sales connections expert, Shari Pash, is here to talk about the power of client testimonials. Hi, Shari.
Hey, Julie, let's talk about that megaphone.
Yes. Okay. So I'm handing the megaphone to you, Shari. Why do testimonials work so well?
Think about, before we do anything nowadays, before we download an app, before we purchase almost anything, go on vacation, buy a car, we read reviews. So are you making it easy for your customers, your clients, your potential customers, especially when you're in a business-to-business sales experience more than a business-to-consumer? Are you letting them read reviews of why they should make an appointment with you? Why should they talk with you? So that's what I want to talk a little bit about, if that's, could cover that today a little bit. Why? Why?
Yes, because, and we can say the same thing that our clients can, but it sounds better coming from our clients than it does coming from us about ourselves. So, but here's one big potential obstacle that I hear a lot. How do I ask for that review? How do I ask for that testimonial?
And Julie, it's easier than we know. So what we do, we all are getting, I know you all out there are getting emails and voicemails and conversations from customers and clients giving you kudos on some work you've done with them. Someone's emailed you a thank you. Hey, awesome work we did together. You want to take that feedback you're already receiving, type it into an email to take their words, but put it into a testimonial format, and then ask them, would they be comfortable if I was to share this feedback you gave me and help other businesses experience the same success you have, or help you grow your business by using your name as I promote this testimonial. So there's a lot of ways that we can ask for that based on what they're already telling us. And we're just taking and putting it into a format, because everybody wants to give you a review. But if you ask them to do it, your client has the best intention, right, to give you that testimonial. But do they sit down in their busy day and actually take time to write it? Not always.
Such a good point. The easier we can make it, the better. Okay, Shari. So once we have the testimonials, what do we do with them?
Okay, that's the big part, right? Right. We collect them, but now use them in your strategy. Testimonials should be a part of your sales strategy. There should be a strategy written out on how you gather them, what you do with them. Now, we all know there's video testimonials, there are reviews, there's written ones. I want to talk just a minute on the written because it's super easy to use. Make a Word document or wherever you store information and create different topics. And you want to take a testimonial that looks kind of like that DNA of the makeup of a business you're trying to do business with, or that person. And you want to pull that and put it right in that email when you're trying to schedule an appointment. Because if you're trying to get an appointment with this person, that testimonial may get you that appointment far more than anything you've put into your email. Keep your stuff short and sweet and put in that testimonial so they see what someone else is experiencing. Use it in your social media. Use it on your website, of course, but make sure to get those reviews out where people can see those. So that's one really easy way.
Well, and not to toot your own horn, but I can. If you want to see an example of good testimonials and testimonials being used, go to sharipash.com, because on each of your services that you list out, Shari, you have different testimonials that are specific to those, that service that we're reading about, which is, a really great example of that. Shari, I've also heard you say at one point that the best way to get a testimonial is to give a testimonial. So talk to us a little bit about how we could maybe initiate that strategy. What would that entail?
That would be where if you have a customer or client that you've had a great experience with, and especially if there's somebody who also is doing growth for their business, it's offering to do that, give that compliment and offer to do that testimonial review for them. And quite often they will just naturally give you a review in return as well. So I think that that's a definitely a strategy that can be used as well. And the best one is just any feedback you get, use, and then be kind with your feedback as well. Review people on LinkedIn, right? I think in our last session, we talked about LinkedIn, and you can do recommendations and reviews right through that tool, and it makes it so easy to do. So definitely look at that as well. And I think it's really important too that you use those testimonials that talk about the area of your business you want to grow. So make sure you're gathering testimonials for this, maybe a market segment or on a product line or a service you want to grow, and use those testimonials to grow that.
Such a great point, Shari. Oftentimes we focus on just the testimonials we have, but if we're looking to grow a certain area of our business, then perhaps that's what you're saying we should be looking at then.
That's right. Be strategic in the testimonials you want, the reviews you want. If you're looking to grow a certain industry, have testimonials and reviews from people in that industry. So we want to, again, that's why I say testimonials and reviews should be a part of your sales plan and a part of your strategic plan on how you're going to do that.
Shari, one last question for you, because in our last segment, we were talking about how to attract your ideal audience. And one of the guys in that segment mentioned that if you are trying to attract everyone, then you are really accomplishing nothing. You're not attracting anyone. So how can a testimonial, kind of to that point, how can a testimonial help us with that?
I think it's knowing, again, who your ideal client and your ideal audience is. And that's where that testimonial is talking to them. You know, again, that knowledge we talked about in a previous session as well. Once we know what's important to those customers and clients, we know the testimonial that we need, and we know the words, the language that is going to mean something to them. You want to be watching, again, their social media, so you know the words that they use. Do they use partnerships? Do they use growth? What are the words they use? And make sure your testimonials have those words in them so it resonates with them.
Oh, what a great point, Shari. Insightful as always. Thank you for sharing this information.
Thank you, Julie. I love talking about testimonials and reviews. It's one of the best strategies we can put into play today.
Absolutely. And in fact, Shari was recently featured in a podcast all about testimonials. We're going to link to that on our website for you so you can listen along. Just head to WLAJ.com/expert-connections and click the link for sales connections. It's not often that we can say that everyone is experiencing change at the same time, but with this global pandemic, that's exactly what has happened. The roller coaster of twists and turns has meant different things for each of us, good and bad. And it has many asking, where do we find hope for better days to come? It's the topic of today's Heart and Soul Connections. Joining me is Liz Doyle, the founder of She Leads Michigan, along with Nida Khan, an honoree of the group. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
This is such a deep question, talking about where do we find hope, but both of you answer it so beautifully. Nida, I'm going to start with you. You're originally from Pakistan, and you have expertise in psychology and counseling and cultural diversity, with such a unique viewpoint on this topic. Because in order to talk about where we find hope, I think we first need to touch on how people lose hope, especially during situations like this with the global pandemic. We don't really have to look far to find people in need of hope. So what are your thoughts on this, Nida?
You know, I think hope is an emotion, and hope is something you learn. Hope is something that you carry within yourself. But most important thing about hope, which I'm a huge fan of, is resilience. And what that does is it refers to the positive adaptation to adversity. And that's what hope gives us. I've seen it with immigrants. I've seen it with victims of domestic violence, of sexual abuse. And now we're seeing this in this pandemic, that hope really allows people to evolve to whatever hardships they're going through. If you look at back in history, human beings have a long history, biological and cultural evolution for resilience. And, you know, at the end of the day, the question I always ask people is, are you a type of person who looks at life as half glass empty or half glass full? And hope is basically what allows us to look at life as half glass full. You know, and I have seen it in how we are working in our communities, the tremendous generosity of our community members towards small businesses, towards essential staff members, and even towards the elderly who are suffering the most in our communities currently.
I love how you mentioned that evolution, because we've seen so much evolve over the last year. What are the benefits of hope?
You know, hope allows us to trust in ourselves. It also improves our physical health, our emotional health. It allows us to demonstrate our faith, you know, and we have seen faith-based communities really rise in this pandemic and really, you know, almost take care of the communities. Hope also helps us to choose healthier behaviors for ourselves and our families. And the most important thing about hope is it allows us to be compassionate towards ourselves and towards our others. And I think the key component of being compassionate is that we have to first and foremost allow us to experience our own emotions and accept our emotions, you know, remind us that it is okay and that we are not alone. You know, currently there's 8 billion of us in this pandemic together.
Is hope the same as optimism?
You know, optimism is mostly an individual's core belief that the future will be better. There's positive experiences and you won't have any bad experiences. Whereas hope, on the other hand, is basically knowing that, whether you get the vaccine or not, or you will be still okay. So I think especially with COVID, our communities have had both hope and optimism that has pulled them through this pandemic.
Okay, Liz, I want to turn to you now. Nada mentioned faith and the faith community. And Liz, with your decades of spiritual leadership around the globe, now at the helm as the founder of She Leads Michigan, what brings you hope?
Well, for me, it's not what brings me hope, but who brings me hope. For over 50 years now, I've been trusting in God through Jesus Christ. So, for example, in January 2019, while in prayer, the Lord prompted me to bring accomplished women of faith from around the state together from a variety of backgrounds, races, political persuasions, and denominations to bring faith-based solutions to modern day challenges. Little did we know that we would find ourselves in the midst of a pandemic, facing racial tension and political upheaval. But this did not take God by surprise. He knows everything. He has the answers and has all power. So I have hope because I have hope in a God who knows what's going to happen before it happens, and that he gives us the way to navigate through these things, even through our relationships. And our hope doesn't stop there. My hope is in this world and beyond, because he's given us a place in heaven if we turn to him. Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for good to them who love God and are called according to his purposes. Sometimes we find ourselves in deep darkness and despair. And all we need to do is to do what God told us to do, is repent, which means turn around, because when you turn around, you will find the light at the end of the tunnel. And that light is the light of the world. That's Jesus Christ. And what I would ask people to do today is to consider him. God is perfect. He's not flawed. Our institutions, people are flawed. We don't have all the answers. But in him are the answers. And we need to put our trust in him. And that's where I get my hope.
And what a time to connect with other women through faith than now, when we've been separated in so many ways by this global pandemic. Liz and Nada, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. You can see more from the women of She Leads Michigan and connect with them online. Just head to our website, wlaj.com/expertconnections, and click on the Heart and Soul Connections link. Thank you for joining us for Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. We'll see you back here next Monday.
Expert Connections is executive produced by M Connections Marketing Agency in collaboration with Foster Swift Law Firm. Strategic Solutions for Growth. SuperWebPros, Symposia Labs, UnoDeuce Multimedia, and She Leads Michigan. A special thank you to our Style Connections partners, Polka Dots Boutique, The Standard Spa, and Beauty by Wilder. Visit our Style Spotlight online at wlaj.com/expertconnections.